afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie Laurel. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed this Friday. Now, before I get to the markets, let's take a quick peek at the overseas Filipino workers' remittances for the month of August. The Bangko Sentral had just released these figures, and you can see that on my terminal here, still on the green side, which means that there has been an increase compared to last year for August. That's to the tune of 5.1% higher than in August of 2020, to the tune of $2.61 billion. So that did rise, and that growth was faster compared to the bar before that. You can see that the clip was 2.5% an increase recorded in July. This actually brings the first 8 months of 2021 to a growth of 5.7% year on year to $20.38 billion. However, the Philstar has reported that Jeremiah Opiniano, he's a professor at the University of Santo Tomas, and he's also the executive director at the Institute for Migration and Development Issues, says that this increase in remittances is actually a hopeful sign, particularly that the global economy is on the mend. But the problem is that when you take a look at the month to month data, you can see that that data is showing a slowing down. The remittances were down 8.6% month on month, and Opiniano has said that this sequential drop, however, is still not as significant as compared to the same month of last year. You've also got Nikki Mapa pointing towards some weaknesses here. He did expect that despite the growth in August, he does say that this is below the analyst expectations. Analysts were expecting double-digit inflows in the month of August to the tune of 11% as surveyed by Bloomberg. And Mapa says moving forward, we expect remittances to continue to expand but moderating in the coming months, particularly because of the weakness of the peso. Speaking of the peso, you can see us weakening back to 50 spot 732 to the greenback. We're still in a quite tight range amid the stock inflows. This even as the global funds bought a net of $3.78 in million dollars rather in local equities yesterday. And let's take a look at those equities in particular. You can see us closing up by 0.4%, continuing that upswing. We are at 72.13.46 here. Let's take a look at our big movers for the day. You can see ICTSI up by 5.8%, followed by BDO and two Aboitiz companies, Aboitiz Power and AEV. But on the downside, you've got Globe Telecom, the biggest loser of the day. That is down by 3.9%, followed by AC Energy, as well as Bloomberry and Robinson's Retail. And finally, just one quick peek on a specific stock. Of course, this has been suspended, but we are very much watching out for PAL and whether the suspension will be lifted at one point in time. This, as the parent company has gotten 200 as it gets from its parent $255 million from Tycoon Lucio Tan. That is a private placement by Buona Sorte, which is owned by Tycoon Lucio Tan, and that is the equivalent of basically 12.75 billion pesos common shares. PAL, of course, had already reported that it has increased its authorized capital to 30 billion shares from the initial 13.5 billion pesos. Checking in on the biggest headlines, we are keeping our eyes on the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Governor Ben Diokno says there may be no need for the central bank to provide additional bridge financing for the national government as the economy reopens further. Now, under the new Central Bank Act, the Bangko Sentral is allowed to lend 20% of its average revenues to the government, which is equivalent to 540 billion pesos. However, because of the Bayanihan 2 law, the government has been allowed to access 850 billion pesos in direct advances, which Diokno says the finance department has yet to tap so far. Diokno says in a press briefing that because of the downtrend in cases, as well as the reopening of the economy, he no longer sees the need for additional bridge financing other than the original 540 billion pesos. The central bank has already granted this loan to the national government back in July, and that is payable within the next 3 months. National Treasurer Rosalia De Leon meanwhile confirmed that the payment for the loan has been extended for another 3 months. Diokno, however, denied that the national government has been over-relying on the Bangko Sentral. And here's another one from the BSP. It is now eyeing to develop a registry to monitor cash agents nationwide that have more than tripled since the start of the pandemic. Diokno said the registry will be a tool to effectively monitor agents and help streamline submission of agent data by the BSP supervised financial institutions. It can also be used as a tool for agent data analysis and for measuring the depth and reach of agent services. Cash agents include retail outlets like small shops, convenience stores, pharmacies, supermarkets, and pawn shops that are contracted by banks to offer basic banking or financial services to customers. The registry can generate the locations of these agents as well as their services and transactions, among others. Diokno adds that the BSP is currently working with a development partner that will provide technical support to develop a prototype of the agent registry. And the Trade Department says cinemas may not be able to reopen immediately once Alert Level 3 takes effect tomorrow. In today's Laging Handa briefing, DTI Undersecretary Ireneo Vismontes said cinema owners may need more time to prepare theaters for reopening and make sure that health guidelines are strictly followed. These include ensuring proper air ventilation inside the cinemas and that only 30% of the capacity will be opened exclusively for vaccinated individuals. Moviegoers will also be required to wear their face masks and shields, which means food will not be allowed inside the theaters. And despite the more relaxed rules under Alert Level 3, the DTI reiterates that minimum health standards need to be strictly implemented and only fully vaccinated workers are allowed to return to their work in cinemas or other recreational venues. With the reopening of the economy imminent, how quick will the hardest hit small and micro businesses bounce back? Here for a chat, we have with us Robert Bastillo. He is the spokesperson of SB Corp. Good morning, Sir Robert, and welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Good
Hello,
morning, sir. Okay, there you are. I think we had some technical
can you hear me?
difficulties earlier on. Sir, just a quick update po on
Good
this
morning.
zero interest loan program to help
Yes.
the small companies with 13-month payroll. Is this program enough?
Mhm.
200 million pesos po. How many can be helped by this and who are eligible to avail of this zero interest loan?
Okay, we are thinking of increasing that fund depending on the uptake of these potential borrowers. So that's in the talks, and we will be announcing that shortly. Uh, we would like to be very efficient about this process and also not be bogged down by having to validate the borrowers, their status. So we are partnering with the DOLE, Department of Labor and Employment, to get their list of companies, which means they were affected by the pandemic and that they got clearance from DOLE for like three-day work weeks or work from home arrangements and things like those. So we would be certain that these are legitimate companies and they are affected by the
Okay.
pandemic adversely.
Okay. Sir, up to how much can they loan? And in your projections, how many small companies are you expecting to avail of this?
Hello.
Okay, let's try to get Sir Robert back on the stream. We seem to have been losing him earlier on due to technical difficulties. All right, let's take a quick peek at the markets then as we end this broadcast. I did want to take a step back and look at the 5-day performance and see how, of course, the markets have been moving as we end this week. You've got Jollibee. Take a look at that, up by 12 and 0.1% in just the past week. They had already been, mentioning quite a lot of things on top of the fact that there will be a reopening and more dine-in foot traffic. They're also opening new stores over in Europe, in Canada, and other parts of North America. They've also done a rights offering as well of 12 billion pesos. So quite a lot of news on the Jollibee front. You've got SM Prime Holdings following suit. That's up by 9 and 0.8%. Note that SM Prime, together with Ayala Land, of course, are very, very closely watched here as they own quite a lot of malls, and those malls are set to benefit, of course, from the reopening. You've also got banks, a couple of banks here doing very well, SecB and BDO in particular. This, of course, as you've got the Bangko Central governor saying that they will be maintaining the accommodative rates and that the inflation will be remaining within the target throughout, at least by the end of the year. We also had Manny Ocampo earlier on mentioning that he's not very afraid of the impact of the oil prices rising above $80 a barrel on the inflation print and on the sector, saying that this is likely to be temporary and assuaged as, of course, the supply side issues get fixed. But on the downside, you've got around 5 companies sitting out the rally, the enjoyment that we've been seeing in the markets this week, and those are Wilcon Depot, down a hefty 15 and 0.7%, followed by AC Energy, Converge, ICTSI, and PLDT. But do note that Converge and PLDT have, of course, been some of the best performers this year. So perhaps just a correction there on that front. Again, our index up by 4 and 0.4%. In just the 5 days of trade, we are actually more than 7% up. If you take a look at the period since we've reopened from that August ECQ. So hoping for some legs to this rally. And those are the biggest stories this trading day. Today is October 15, 2021. Catch Business World live on Monday next week at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and at 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.